Exclusive contract from Feilu Novel Network Novel. Agent. Bureau seat, don't get promoted. I'm really an undercover agent. Xu Xiaolian traveled to the world of espionage fusion, such as Kite, Infiltration, Undercover, Rebel, Before Dawn, and he became the younger brother of Xu Zhongyi, the assistant of the Military Statistics Bureau. At the same time, he is also an underground worker lurking within the Military Statistics Bureau. Codenamed Old Ghost. Activate the check.in system, and check.in becomes stronger. Sign in gun fighting skills, sign in bone shrinking skills, sign in voice changers, and give people the nickname Military Statistics Kill God. During the anti-Japanese war, there were not 1,000 Japanese killed, but also 800, so I gained the attention of the Bureau, rose to prominence within the Military Statistics Bureau, and became the youngest Major General in the Military Statistics Bureau. But please don't get promoted. If I continue to rise, I will take the government seat. After the victory, if the explanation is unclear. Xu Zhongyi. I am a shop assistant, and my younger brother is under the Unified Military Command. Zheng Yaoxian. Xu Xiaolian is the true belief in military unification. Boss die. Xu Xiaolian, there must be an undercover agent between you, Lao Liu, and me. You're not an undercover agent, and neither are Lao Liu. Is that right? Feilu Novel Network reminds you that this novel and its characters are purely fictional. If there are any similarities, they are purely coincidental and should not be imitated. Listing remarks. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Adhere to originality and eliminate non-compliant commitment letters. Pen name, a lucky person, guarantee that the signed work belongs to my own original creation, and strictly follow the Feilu Writers' Convention during the creation process. I adhere to originality and prevent the following violations. If there are any violations, I am willing to bear all consequences arising from them. 1. Ensure that the signed work belongs to one's own original work and does not involve plagiarism or plot plagiarism in Chinese translation. 2. Ensure that no third-party works or plot are plagiarized during the creative process. 3. Ensure that this work is first published and the only contracted website on Feilu Novel Network. 3. Ensure compliance with laws and regulations during the creative process, including but not limited to, violations such as not involving politics, not involving pornography, gambling, drugs, promoting cults, not ghostwriting, not blocking or abolishing manuscripts, not hosting, not selling works or accounts, etc. 4. Ensure that regardless of the word count of the work, the signed work must complete the plot, never end, and never stop or end. Feilu's novel. Fei wants you to look good. Chapter 1. Old Ghost appears at the Chongqing Military Statistics Headquarters. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In 1945, Chongqing. Military Statistics Headquarters, shooting range. Prepare, start. The range recorder, dressed in a Republican military uniform and wearing a military cap, was standing beside the rifle target with a serious expression on his face. Raise your hand towards the opposite side, 50 meters away, to signal. Looking at him in the direction of his gaze, I saw that members of the Chongqing headquarters action team were neatly arranged in a row, burying their heads and assembling dismantled Browning pistols that were lying on the table. Looking around, everyone was cautious and their hands were trembling. Schwa schwa schwa. After 3 to 5 minutes, all the scattered talents were assembled. As soon as I raised my hand, I couldn't help but feel mentally tense. Bang bang bang. Bang bang bang. With a few sharp gunshots, the competition came to an end. The range recorder shouted loudly while recording all the results on each target. At the end of the competition, everyone's orderly handguns were placed on the table, and they consciously formed a line again. Captain Su, this is the transcript you requested, all of which are recorded in the book. After a while, the shooting range recorder ran to a shady spot next to him and handed over the transcript in his hand. That's it, there's not even a 10-ring one, and you're still fucking hitting the target. What a shame. Upon hearing this, the range recorder seemed to understand something. He lifted his eyes and carefully looked at the slightly angry man in front of him. He was very tall, with a cold face, but his eyes were light amber in color. "Captain Su, what do you mean?" The man didn't respond, just casually waved his hand. The range recorder immediately understood something, turned back, ran all the way, and spoke to the team members in that row. Everyone began to consciously line up again, walked to the table, dismantled and reassembled the handgun that had just been assembled, and started shooting targets, a bunch of trash. The sound of gunfire echoed not far away, and the man standing in the shade hummed another sentence out of his mouth. He is none other than the captain of the first squad member of the military statistics action team, named Xu Xiaolian. Xu Zhongyi, the biological younger brother of the director of the General Affairs Department, is a student of the Qingpu Special Training Class and a solid spy of the Fruit Army. Having been in the Military Statistics Bureau for several years, he not only achieved remarkable military achievements in the mission of assassinating Japanese devils. Moreover, he has demonstrated outstanding and heroic performance in various major actions assigned by the Bureau and the top leadership. In summary, Xu Xiaolian can be called a major killer in the Military Statistics Bureau. If it weren't for his qualifications not being as advanced as Zheng Yaoxian, the sixth brother of the Military Statistics Bureau, it's highly likely that the two of them would be on an equal footing. Xu Xiaolian's eyes are very beautiful, both clear and transparent. It's like this pair of light-colored pupils, but they often emit misty clouds of sorrow, making it difficult to understand. Just like the secret he carries, it's far from here. Xu Xiaolian is a traveler. 3 years ago, I traveled to this integrated film and television world. And also successfully obtained the golden finger. Check.in system. The Check.in system is divided into 3 types. Daily, monthly, and annual. Daily signing, as the name suggests, allows you to receive a variety of food and daily necessities by checking in on time every day. If you're a bit lucky, it's not impossible to draw a Beretta M92F. By the same token, monthly signing allows one to sign in once a month, and the benefits obtained from signing in are much better than daily signing, such as deception, voice changing, acting skills, and bone shrinking skills, not to mention the annual signing. Although it only happens once a year, Xu Xiaolian has only signed 3 times since his travels. But the things obtained from annual signing in are all good things. He was very lucky in his first year and directly obtained super fortified serum, which made his physical fitness reach 10 times the limit of human health. Therefore, once it comes, let it be. With the blessing of the golden finger, coupled with the fact that the country is currently in a state of dire straits, Xu Xiaolian did not hesitate to choose to become an underground Communist Party member, codenamed Old Ghost. Xu Xiaolian's thoughts were chaotic and complex. He squinted his eyes and looked at the team members lined up not far away, feeling bored in his heart. They are all newly recruited to the headquarters, most of whom are half the size of graduates from military academies. When Xu Xiaolian first saw them in the action team, they were all handsome and had a smile on their faces. He couldn't help but think, is it difficult for everyone to actually join the military statistics headquarters, doing things for the country and the people? Little did they know that it was just a sacrifice for the future confrontation between the Kuomintang and the Communist Party, a pawn that was being used one by one. Xu Xiaolian pursed his lips and silently felt indignant in his heart. Hey, I thought the gunshots were coming from somewhere in the headquarters. When I went to the shooting range, it turned out that Captain Su was training his offspring. Suddenly, a round and energetic voice behind him interrupted Xu Xiaolian's thoughts, and he changed his expression and turned his head. I saw Zheng Yaoxian, one of the 8 great calm warriors of the Military Statistics Bureau, ranking 6th. He is not only the top secret agent of the Fruit Party, but also the cunning and ruthless Ghost 6. Few underground Communist Party members or Japanese prisoners who were interrogated by him would bolt out of the interrogation room alone. Zheng Yaoxian may seem a bit elusive, but it's not his eyes, it's the smile on his face. Sometimes, Zheng Yaoxian's face was round with a black aura, and his narrow eyes were as cold as frost, making it difficult to approach. But sometimes, he likes to squint his eyes and pretend to be a smiling Buddha, and can't help but say a joke to everyone. Zheng Yaoxian was decisive in his attack, and Xu Xiaolian, as the captain of the action team, was also like this. They came and went, and the two of them were quite familiar. But the former did not know the latter's true identity, and he looked up at him as if he were looking at an ordinary fruit party. On the surface, they greet each other with a smile, but in reality, they are unfamiliar and distant. Even if we can be sworn brothers, it's just to clear obstacles for our future actions to be more convenient. I dare not, brother 6, you are. Xu Xiaolian turned his head to look behind him, following a group of people and horses in a grand manner, and couldn't help but ask curiously. He is a traveler, naturally with a divine perspective. Unlike Zheng Yaoxian, he knew that the other party was an underground party of the Communist Party of China, a comrade of his own, and a Kite. He voluntarily chose to approach him, but he never thought about expressing his true identity to him. Zheng Yaoxian didn't think about replying to Xu Xiaolian's words, but simply raised his finger and pointed to the row of newly joined members of the action team not far away. Chang Ran spoke up and said again. How big the sun is today. They can't become dull if they keep practicing. Just joined the team not long ago, you don't need to train in such a hurry. Hurry up and call them over to avoid. After speaking, Zheng Yaoxian did not wait for the approval of Xu Xiaolian as his direct superior. He shouted at everyone with all his might, his strength seemed so strong that he couldn't even use it up. 3 things to do when reading. Read, collect, and reward. Chapter 2. Only 6 brothers and horseheads show respect. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Hey, those new arrivals, Sa Yazi, come over and be silly. As the words fell, Zheng Yaoxian stepped on his riding boots. A thin layer of loess is raised underground in the campus of the Chongqing headquarters. The 6th brother of the Military Statistics Bureau did not conceal his disregard for himself. Xu Xiaolian naturally opened and closed his eyes, and he wouldn't embarrass himself in front of Zheng Yaoxian. He turned his wrist, moved his muscles and bones, and then showed him hospitality. What Brother Liu said is, are you? Just finished work. Why don't we go eat together later? I'm not in the mood, I won't eat. Zheng Yaoxian first threw down such a sentence, then lowered his eyes and took out a pack of cigarettes. After thinking for a moment, he continued. The little devil has been experiencing some abnormalities lately. Daizhua asked me to go to his office to talk. Upon hearing this, Xu Xiaolian was somewhat cautious. His head was spinning rapidly like a top that had just been whipped by a pimp. It is now April 1945, the eve of the end of the anti-Japanese war, and the day of the upcoming internal struggle between the Kuomintang and the Communist Party. A new bloody battle is about to unfold secretly underground. This time period should be the beginning of Zecheng, the protagonist of the plot of Undercover. That's right, it's right. A spiritual light suddenly flashed through Xu Xiaolian's mind. He immediately thought that the Military Statistics Bureau was afraid of encountering unexpected disasters. According to the original plot of Undercover, Li Haifeng, known as the Military Intelligence Secret Service Code Treasure, has defected to Nanjing and is determined to bow down to the Japanese, causing many troubles. The senior officials of the Military Statistics Bureau were infuriated, especially Dai Li. Counting the days, he would immediately order and send people to eliminate the traitor Li Haifeng. At this time, Zecheng had not yet joined the underground Communist Party of China, but only had a communist girlfriend named Xuelan. After all, he is just a novice military statistics field worker with little work experience. Being sent to Nanjing recklessly and ordered to monitor Li Haifeng's every move is truly dangerous. In addition, LV Zhongfang, who also needed to go to Nanjing, was a member of the Communist Party and died directly to protect Zecheng. Xu Xiaolian felt that this battle to clean up the mess for the Fruit Army was really not easy to fight. Hey, Xiaolian, what are you thinking? Zheng Yaoxian raised his hand and snapped his fingers at Xu Xiaolian. The latter raised his eyes and shook his mind, speaking calmly. Brother Liu, isn't this for training them? They haven't eaten yet, thinking about what's left in the cafeteria later. Speaking, Xu Xiaolian pointed to the new team members who had already stood nearby. According to what I have trained before. They still consciously formed a team, standing with the people behind Zheng Yaoxian, in the midst of Wuyang. He placed the cigarette pack on the back of his hand and knocked it twice before popping out a cigarette. Zheng Yaoxian opened his mouth and asked Xu Xiaolian. Do you have any fire on you? Brother Liu, my fire is in the office and I didn't take it. Xu Xiaolian's face remained calm and he quickly replied. Zheng Yaoxian curled his lips at the sound and stuffed the pack of cigarettes in his hand back into his pocket. Damn it, this world is really difficult to live in. I was thinking of taking a cigarette slowly, but I didn't expect there to be no fire. Bad luck, stop smoking. Xu Xiaolian heard some clues, and he narrowed Amber's eyes to take over his conversation. Brother Liu, are you okay? Ah, it's okay. The Communist Party has issued a pursuit order for me, saying they want my head. Since I found out, there will always be people behind me. TSK, Xiaolian, what do you think I should do? In a hurry, Zheng Yao turned his back and pointed to the person behind him. He spoke calmly, as if it wasn't him who was written on the Communist Party's pursuit order. Except for Xu Xiaolian, all those who heard this on the scene had turned almost earthy gray on their faces. Those who can do their job are just afraid of being on the enemy's pursuit list. In this way, millions of eyes are staring at you in every corner. Not to mention doing bad things, just going out casually and being carefree and happy, there's a possibility that you might get a few bullets and end up dead. Xu Xiaolian is not foolish. He could tell that Zheng Yaoxian was using words to test himself. He had carefully planned everything from entering the shooting range at the beginning to having his own team members stand up to him later. It's just to call everyone one by one, to hear how hard Zheng Yaoxian, the sixth brother of the Military Statistics Bureau, worked for the party and the country, was loyal to the party, and how deep his blood feud was with the Communist Party. Brother Liu, what kind of person are you? Didn't you just go on the wanted list? If the Communist Party wants your life, they also need someone to come to you to take it, right? Xu Xiaolian quickly replied, his eyes suddenly turning from soft to fierce. Don't worry, everyone is loyal to the party fruit and will definitely show respect to party fruit heroes like you, Brother Six. Only Six Brothers Horsehead is obedient. Only Six Brothers Horsehead is obedient. Soon, a new team of players took over the conversation. Under the leadership of Xu Xiaolian, they were deeply influenced and had some eye contact. The careful move made by Zheng Yaoxian seems to be so logical and natural. As the saying goes, those who know current affairs are heroes. Zheng Yaoxian looked at Xu Xiaolian and suddenly became a bit stunned. What does a horse's head look like? Unlike his brother Xu Zhongyi, Xu Xiaolian's way of flattering sounds somewhat different and sincere. It makes people feel bored and comfortable to listen to. Undoubtedly, he is a famous killer on the list of Chongqing headquarters, and he is also a decent celebrity in front of Boss Dai. Zheng Yaoxian suddenly remembered something. He lowered his eyes and became calm, with a subtle curve rising at the corner of his mouth. He suddenly had the idea of trying to win over Xu Xiaolian, not for anything else, but for better future work. Xu Xiaolian is doing well at the headquarters, even if not better than himself, compared to his brother, he is still nourishing. Xu Zhongyi was on both sides, but Xu Xiaolian was sincere every word, like an honest leader. In addition, being able to speak, perform meritorious deeds, possess emotional intelligence, and have a strong aura, these are like the coveted treasures around Dai Li in the future. If one had already established a relationship with them, there would have been no harm but benefits. Xiaolian, how long have you been at headquarters? 3 years. Xu Xiaolian replied with a calm expression and a calm heart. The sky was gloomy, and a slight gust of wind blew. Zheng Yaoxian's face showed an inexplicable expression of meaning. Oh, 3 years. Hiss. By the way, Xiaolian, did you just say we had dinner together? Coincidentally, I didn't eat either. A new Western restaurant has opened on Zhuoshan Road. Are you interested? You can book a location in advance. Xu Xiaolian straightened his back and smiled brightly. Brother Liu, I want the steak medium rare, preferably with some hot black pepper sauce on it. It tastes very fresh. Ha ha ha, you kid, you understand very well. Okay, when I come out of the bureau office, let's have a drink together. Zheng Yaoxian was busy going to meet Dai Li. When the two of them hit it off, he turned around and walked towards the school gate. After walking a few miles, he seemed to have thought of something and turned his head to add to Xu Xiaolian. Xiaolian, you're waiting for me. Watching Zheng Yaoxian and his group of horses walk further and further away until they disappear, Xu Xiaolian furrowed his brows with a faint expression. Not being able to see one's own comrades with their true faces is actually a struggle. The task of Zecheng and LV Zongfang being sent to Nanjing to assassinate Li Haifeng made him feel a wave of sadness. Feilu's novel, Fei Wants You to Look Good. Chapter 3. Damn Li Haifeng, a stupid pig. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After traveling for 3 years, Xu Xiaolian wandered between black and white all year round, even though his identity was heavy and his disguise varied. But his heart has never been contaminated with filth, and his patriotic heart has never wavered. Xu Xiaolian is very clear that it is not just because he is a traveler. The moth of the country only has the chance to die. Only by being cruel to them and saving more of our comrades in need. Only then can we urge the country to take off its outdated clothes and revitalize the mountains and rivers as soon as possible. Time passes quickly, and the sunset sets in the west. The team members dispersed one after another, preparing to go for dinner. Apart from the recorder and Xu Xiaolian, there was no one else in the shooting range, and there were gusts of wind blowing. He took a deep breath. Then, walked to a location 50 meters away from the target. Picking up a fully assembled Browning pistol at the fastest speed, he lifted his arm and fired 3 shots. It seems to be expressing one's inner unhappiness, or perhaps dispelling the bitterness of boredom. Bang bang bang. Smoke rises, under the glow of the sunset. Xu Xiaolian's profile lines are sharp and distinct, clean and neat. Scratching. After a while, the range recorder pulled the target paper and ran to Xu Xiaolian, his eyes narrowed into a slit. Captain Xu, you're really amazing. It's getting a bit dark now, and surprisingly, all 3 of your targets have 10 rings, hitting every shot. He truly deserves to be the gun god in our headquarters. Xu Xiaolian smiled disapprovingly and quietly put down his pistol without replying. Immediately after, he withdrew his hands into his pockets and walked out of the school field without looking back. Over the past 3 years, Xu Xiaolian, who has traveled through time, not only has his physical fitness reached an inhuman level. Spear techniques, bone reduction techniques, and deception have been refined to an unparalleled level. The reason why Xu Xiaolian pretended to be foolish and didn't show off the truth. It is precisely because of his time-traveling identity and underground party identity that they are particularly important and must not be easily exposed. By the way, look at this brain. It wasn't until he walked out of the campus and was about to step into the building of the Chongqing headquarters that Xu Xiaolian remembered a big event. The sun has already set, and I haven't checked in on time yet. Thinking about it, Xu Xiaolian pinched his fingers and calculated. 3 years ago today, I traveled to this world, which means that signing in now is also an annual visa. Thinking of this, Xu Xiaolian secretly felt delighted, pursed his lips, and began preparing for the annual contract. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing the annual signing and obtaining the spear fighting technique. Gunfight. A powerful ability that combines physical skills, marksmanship, and swordsmanship, using precise movements to calculate and launch the maximum damage attack from the position with the least damage to oneself. It can shoot to any dead corner around it, and every possible attack direction around the body will be shot. It can exist as both an attack and defense. Not bad. Xu Xiaolian's eyebrows moved, and he couldn't help but feel a lot of relief in his heart. Straightening his waist and adjusting his collar, he walked straight into the military statistics building. At the same time, mixed thoughts began to wander above Dai Li's office. Zheng Yaoxian sat upright on the sofa, watching Dai Li sway back and forth in front of him, unable to stop hesitating in pacing. "Wear a seat, why don't you? There are ghosts, there must be ghosts among them. Lao Liu, there hasn't been any movement in Nanjing lately, and the spies I sent haven't replied either. This is abnormal." Feeling a bit tired from spinning, Dai Li finally stopped and rested. He sat next to Zheng Yaoxian and interrupted him with a serious expression. Zheng Yaoxian saw this and straightened his waist even more. Dai Li's term, Nanjing, refers to the Wang puppet government in Nanjing, led by Wang Jingwei and backed by the Japanese army. Zheng Yaoxian's true identity is the underground party of the Communist Party of China, and of course he is too lazy to pay attention to the open and secret struggles between the Japanese and Guo armies. Shaking his mind, he pretended to speak back again. Daiswa, Yaoxian still feels that they should wait a little longer and not rush for a moment. Perhaps this is their usual routine. Although that's the case, none of our own people who are in the midst of Wang's hypocrisy respond to messages, which has never happened before. I think we should send someone to Nanjing to explore. With a sudden clang, the door was almost knocked open, directly interrupting Dai Li's words. The newcomer was a subordinate of Li Haifeng, a former telecommunications expert of the Military Statistics Bureau. Since Li Haifeng defected to Nanjing, his subordinates have taken up the position of their former superiors and taken on the title of Military Statistics Cryptography Expert and Telecommunications Expert. However, that was only Dai Li's last resort. To be honest, Li Haifeng's decryption technology is not something that ordinary people can compare to and learn. Even the people he brought out with his own hands can only learn superficial things. In other words, even the smartest student, Li Haifeng, as a teacher, may not be willing to give his all. Li Haifeng's subordinates ran into the office door of the leaders of the Military Statistics Bureau, which Dai Li and Zheng Yaoxian never expected. Immediately, the latter calmed down, stood up, and had a reaction. "Yeah, I don't want to live anymore. Open your dog's eyes and see where this is. The bureau office is also just a random intrusion." Zheng Yaoxian pretended, but in fact, he realized that something had happened. Dai Li is not foolish either. He quickly took over the conversation and appeared somewhat anxious. What happened? Li Haifeng's subordinates were panting heavily and couldn't speak for a long time. The more he did this, the more it showed the seriousness of the situation. Dai Li's heart couldn't help but rise to her throat. What exactly happened? Seeing the two of them rushing into the room, Li Haifeng's subordinates couldn't afford to neglect them. He quickly breathed a sigh of relief, bent down, and took over Dai Li's words. "Bureau seat, Brother 6, it's not good, there's an accident. Up. Shanghai, many of our secret radio stations in Shanghai have been destroyed, and the Shanghai station is afraid to fall." Li Haifeng's subordinates personally took over his work. So he is very clear that this must be the original boss's handmade masterpiece. As long as Li Haifeng puts in a little more effort. Not to mention Shanghai, it's probably just a matter of time that radio stations across the country have been destroyed. No one would watch the Japanese army collapse and rush to sell their own people. Damn Li Haifeng, a stupid pig. Upon hearing these words, Zheng Yaoxian immediately looked up at Dai Li. I saw a solemn expression on the latter's face, which couldn't help but exude an indescribable green and gray color. "Nanjing, I'm afraid there will be a big controversy. Feilu's novel, Fei wants you to look good. Chapter 4. Send a fresh face to Nanjing. You are listening at novelfull.audio. What is the current situation in Shanghai? Seeing Dai Li feeling impatient, it seemed that he had already sent a signal before the storm arrived. Zheng Yaoxian knew that if he didn't perform well again, it would be somewhat abnormal. He took 2 steps forward and asked Li Haifeng's subordinates with a solemn expression. Li Haifeng's subordinates are not thinking so much now. He only knew that looking at Dai Li's fierce appearance now, the traitor Li Haifeng was likely to have bad luck. Bad luck comes from bad luck, don't let yourself get caught up in this bad luck. Ah. Oh, that's it. I had already contacted the telecommunications department of Shanghai Station before coming, and they are afraid they will be transferring now. After a moment of confusion, Li Haifeng's subordinates trembled and spoke back. Zheng Yaoxian didn't know what else to ask. He looked at Dai Li again and saw that his face had become even more gloomy. Catch Li Haifeng for me, make sure to catch this bastard who betrayed the party fruit and bring him back to Chongqing. After a while, Dai Li almost roared out loud. As Zheng Yaoxian had thought, this time Dai Li was going to secretly execute Li Haifeng. To put it nicely, it's about capturing Chongqing back. In fact, either using yin moves or sending someone to assassinate. In summary, Dai Li must have set his mind on solving Li Haifeng. You go down first, keep in touch with the Shanghai Station Telecommunications Department, and report the situation in Shanghai to the Bureau at any time. After some thought, Zheng Yaoxian disbanded Li Haifeng's subordinates. After confirming that the person had left, he turned around and said in a deep voice to Dai Li. Daiswa, what should we do next? Dai Li knew that Zheng Yaoxian understood him, so he didn't want to hide anything. When he calmed down, he spoke back directly. Yaoxian, just the fall of Shanghai is enough. I will never allow Li Haifeng to do anything that would harm the party again. But now he is in the Wang puppet government, backed by a big tree. It's obviously not easy for us to assassinate him. Having been by Dai Li's side for so many years, it was not in vain. Zheng Yaoxian immediately understood the meaning behind Dai Li's words. Are you saying? Send a stranger. He rushed to speak, and soon he pretended to give his opinion. Daiswa, the fresh faces won't be noticed by Li Haifeng, but the fresh faces at our headquarters are all fresh melon balls with few years of underground work experience. I didn't send them to assassinate Li Haifeng. Dai Li quickly took over the conversation, and a hint of hope flashed in his deep and bottomless eyes. Although I wish I could take Li Haifeng's life now, I know very well who he is and where the Wang puppet government is. In addition, Li Haifeng has now destroyed the secret radio station in Shanghai, and working together for so many years, he should not be difficult to imagine what kind of reaction I would have. I can't say it well, he has already made arrangements with the Japanese army to guard against my actions. Dai Li looked up at Zheng Yaoxian, turned around and prepared to sit back on the sofa. He continued speaking while taking steps. His few words were so light and precise. Send a fresh face, preferably from the military statistics field office, and then install a fake identity to lurk in the Wang puppet government, constantly monitoring Li Haifeng's every move, but hold still for now. As for the people sent to assassinate him. Halfway through, Dai Li looked at Zheng Yaoxian with a hint of caution on his face. I'll think about it again. Stepping out of Dai Li's office, Zheng Yaoxian wiped off his leather gloves and stuffed them into his pocket. He didn't understand, but before he left, Dai Li said, and LV Zhongfang, we also need to go with them. What exactly does it mean? The person monitoring Li Haifeng is a stranger, and there is another person who assassinated Li Haifeng. What about LV Zhongfang? What kind of mission did he go to Nanjing to carry out as a counter-chief? 6 brothers. At some point, Xu Xiaolian stood behind him and casually called out. Zheng Yaoxian calmed down and his thoughts quickly turned around. The scene of talking to him at the shooting range just now is clearly still vivid in my mind. He wants to use him seriously. You kid, you're so elusive. Brother Liu, let's go. We're so hungry. Xu Xiaolian's mouth curved perfectly, and he raised his hand to touch his stomach. It is not difficult to see that he is trying his best to approach Zheng Yaoxian. He wants to get close to his comrades and is also serious. Without any reason, I made a few idle remarks. Immediately, the two of them took a car together and headed to the newly opened Marty Lucy restaurant mentioned by Zheng Yaoxian. This restaurant is located on Zhuashan Road, which is a small street full of artistic atmosphere. At night, a warm yellow halo flickered everywhere. From time to time, there are French people playing the violin in two places on the street, full of romantic atmosphere, and the music is melodious. How's it going, isn't it good here? Zheng Yaoxian leaned back against the car seat and enthusiastically questioned Xu Xiaolian. Well, it's not bad. I just had a lot of frustration with a group of stupid new team members at the shooting range, and now that I'm here, I feel much happier. Xu Xiaolian sat in the car, his eyes fixed on the window. He couldn't help but think to himself that such a scene was indeed different from the Tenliyang Chang. If it were in a peaceful era, perhaps he would really be more pleasing to the heart. Get off the car and walk into the restaurant. The wind chime in front of the door rang, and a polite waiter greeted them. Take Zheng Yaoxian and Xu Xiaolian into the private room closest to the corridor. The two of them sat down, and Zheng Yaoxian glanced at Xu Xiaolian and inexplicably mentioned it. You see, this is the biggest downside since I got on that pursuit order. Even if you have a delicious meal, you have to keep a hidden eye, afraid of this fate, so just give it to others. Xu Xiaolian could tell that Zheng Yaoxian seemed to be complaining, but in fact, he was emphasizing it to himself. Emphasize that he is incompatible with the Communist Party. It's really tough, Brother 6. Now Brother 4 is on a business trip again, and he has to rely on you both inside and outside the headquarters. Now the Communist Party has come up with this kind of trick again. Oh, it's really annoying. Xu Xiaolian quickly responded, and like Zheng Yaoxian, he also put on a look of resentment. Zheng Yaoxian curved his lips and called the waiter to his side, ordering a bottle of high-quality foreign wine. Brother Liu, I respect you. After 3 rounds of drinking, Zheng Yaoxian let out a deep breath. Xu Xiaolian looked at the opportunity and raised his hand to toast him again. Your loyal attitude towards the party's achievements and brave and fearless spirit over the years have been a role model for us younger generations to learn from. Junior. Zheng Yaoxian could also see that Xu Xiaolian had some flattery towards him. He didn't listen to the truth and pretended to answer. Xiaolian, my qualifications are only slightly deeper than yours. When it comes to the time of entering the Military Statistics Bureau, you and I are both front and back feet. 3 things to do when reading. Read, collect, and reward. Chapter 5. You have been exposed, withdraw from Yenin immediately. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The pleasant sound of the piano in the restaurant passed through the room and reached the ears of Xu Xiaolian and Zheng Yaoxian. After chatting for a long time, the two of them drank a few strong drinks. Having almost finished drinking, the latter suddenly remembered what had happened just now and sighed. Brother Liu, you're so good, why sigh? I remember you just said at the shooting range, what's wrong with the little devil lately? What's wrong with him? Xu Xiaolian put on a puzzled expression and finally asked a question. Anyway, it's just a little bit of trouble for the Guodang family, and Zheng Yaoxian has nothing to hide. He looked at Xu Xiaolian and spoke seriously. Li Haifeng backed away from Wang Puppet and destroyed all the secret radio stations in Shanghai. What? Although this was the answer that Xu Xiaolian had known for a long time, he still pretended to be surprised and asked loudly. This Li Haifeng is so bold, he's not afraid to be on our pursuit list. Zheng Yaoxian lifted his wine glass, raised the curve of his mouth with interest, and said again. He has already gone up. Oh, who is Daiswa planning to send to take action? Xu Xiaolian rubbed his fists and palms, and this time on his trip to Nanjing, he was clearly determined to win. I can't say that well, there are quite a few secret experts around Daiswa. Zheng Yaoxian threw down an ambiguous answer, then picked up a bite of meat and put it into his mouth. What came to his mind, he spoke again. Xiaolian, this is a dangerous job. You probably don't want to go, do you? Why not go? Xu Xiaolian replied solemnly, almost writing the 4 words, loyalty to the party, on his face. Brother Liu, Li Haifeng's crime cannot be punished. If Daiswa sends me, I naturally cannot refuse. Not to mention bringing him back, I died with him in Nanjing, and I also made great contributions. It's a great honor. Surprisingly, there was such a loyal person in the party fruit. Zheng Yaoxian was stunned and couldn't help but recall the self-proclaimed self of Wangpa selling melons. On this point, he and Xu Xiaolian are surprisingly consistent. Daiswa hasn't given the order yet. What are you talking nonsense about, drinking? Following Zheng Yaoxian's words, Xu Xiaolian did not continue speaking. But his heart was clear, and he must have listened to his words. If he really wants to help Dai Li solve his confusion, although Zheng Yaoxian doesn't intervene, he will probably recommend himself to him. After all, this matter involves the Japanese army and national interests, so the Kuomintang and the Communist Party naturally merged into one. As expected, 3 days later, Xu Xiaolian received orders from Dai Li to secretly go to Nanjing to assassinate Li Haifeng. The latter knows his exceptional marksmanship and even specially equipped him with a Browning M1911. Zecheng and LV Zongfang, together with Xu Xiaolian as a secret assassin, will definitely go alone. One side is in the dark, the other side is in the bright. The whereabouts of Zecheng and LV Zongfang are clear to Xu Xiaolian. He knew that LV Zongfang had already exposed his identity in the Military Statistics Bureau during his trip, and Dai Li wanted him to die. Just wanted him to die in Nanjing and be framed by the Japanese army, so in Dai Li's eyes, regardless of whether there was a Japanese army or not, the Kuomintang and the Communist Party were never one family. In his eyes, there is no such thing as being a fellow countryman, only the interests of the party. Get off the train and arrive in Nanjing. Zecheng gained a new identity and naturally entered the Wang puppet government, with the assistance of LV Zongfang in secret. Xu Xiaolian is still in the dark, waiting for Zecheng to transmit Li Haifeng's recent whereabouts with special symbols every other day. Xu Xiaolian doesn't care at all about what Li Haifeng does and where he goes every day. My abilities are clear in my heart. Assassinating Li Haifeng is simply a piece of cake for him. Hiding in the hotel all day, Xu Xiaolian's most thought was to save LV Zongfang and protect Zecheng. Quickly. A letter was secretly handed over to LV Zongfang, which was passed down by his own organization and signed as Old Ghost. Lu Zongfang has heard of the deeds of the Old Ghost. You have been exposed, withdraw to Yan'an immediately, Old Ghost. This sentence was silently recited by LV Zongfang 1,000 times in his heart. He would occasionally recall Zecheng, who was now in the midst of deep water and hot earth. But now this secret report makes him extremely uneasy. He tossed and turned thousands of times, but still decided to follow the organization's arrangements and not take unauthorized actions. The 4th day of the assassination of Li Haifeng. Before Zecheng, who had been lurking in the Wang puppet government for a long time, could make a sound, LV Zong conveniently and timely withdrew from Nanjing. Until Xu Xiaolian and Zecheng completed the assassination mission and returned to Chongqing to report, Dai Li did not fully understand when LV Zongfang knew he had been exposed and retreated. Nanjing is very big, and it goes without saying that it is bustling. In terms of Xu Xiaolian's ability, he was completely unconcerned about the assassination mission. I either eat Qinhuai 8 wonders at Chuanxiang Tower or taste the clouds and mist of the old mountains at Pinjianju all day long. LV Zongfang's safe evacuation made him deeply gratified. In addition to secretly protecting Zecheng and waiting for the opportunity to assassinate Li Haifeng. During the rest of the time, Xu Xiaolian really came to visit Nanjing. "Auntie, wrap this, and this all up for me." Leaning against the snack stand on the street, Xu Xiaolian wore a low-brimmed hat and curved his lips as he spoke. When the lady saw a big guest, she quickly greeted them with a smile and reached out to greet them. "Okay, wait a moment. Beef potsticker, steamed cakes, xiaolongbao, sir." With a moment of bowing her head and looking up, the lady narrowed her eyes and couldn't find the big guest just now. "The hot and fragrant snacks were still held in my hand and not handed out." The person disappeared, leaving only a few hundred fiat coins at the booth. "That's right," Xu Xiaolian was called away. It was a signal sent by Zecheng. After sinking for a few days, Li Haifeng finally wanted to leave the protection of the mountain and go out to explore the wind. The location is a courtyard on the outskirts of Nanjing, passing through a winding mountain road. Xu Xiaolian went there without even thinking, except for a gun pinned behind him. He didn't bring anything else. The launch of Zecheng was originally by Lv Zongfang. As soon as the latter disappeared, he ordered direct contact with Xu Xiaolian. There are many ways for the two to contact each other, including anonymous letters, radio broadcasts, or firework signals. The information sent by Xu Xiaolian to Zecheng was very rare, and it was almost difficult to know who the other person was. In summary, Xu Xiaolian has been emphasizing one thing to him, just reporting on his actions and ignoring the rest. At this moment, Zecheng is still a new melon egg. He lurks in the Wang puppet government every day, facing numerous crises, and obviously doesn't have much energy to manage anything else. 3 things to do when reading. Read, collect, and reward. Chapter 6. This trip is a reward given by the Empire. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Complete today's check.in. Ding, congratulations to the host for obtaining a bottle of highly toxic potion. In April, coinciding with the rainy season, the sky was somewhat gloomy and dark clouds rolled in waves. Xu Xiaolian stood beside a wudong tree and watched the surrounding terrain. He hit on a mountain road that Li Haifeng was bound to pass by, and was about to complete the assassination mission entrusted to him by Dai Li. The golden finger suddenly made a sound, catching it off guard. There have been too many things lately, and Xu Xiaolian can't help but forget about his daily visa. However, it's better to hurry than to hurry. Today's day sign is a great thing I've never seen before. He raised his hand and lowered the brim of his hat, repeating it incessantly in his mouth. Highly toxic potion. As he spoke, the corners of Xu Xiaolian's mouth curved, indicating that his golden fingers were going to give him another helping hand. At the same time, a black military vehicle was driving on a rugged mountain road. There were 3 men sitting in the car: Li Haifeng, the bodyguard dispatched by the Japanese army for Li Haifeng, and Li Haifeng's driver. Since defecting from the Military Statistics Bureau, he fled to Nanjing. Li Haifeng's state was not as light and free as he had previously thought. On the contrary, he felt immensely suppressed. Is the Japanese army treating him well, given that he is the code treasure trove of the Military Statistics Bureau and his superb ability to decipher codes? But Li Haifeng was ultimately a traitor, and the Japanese army was very aware of this. He can betray the party, so one day he can also betray them. The Japanese army was about to be in a state of deep water and fire, and obviously couldn't withstand the turmoil. Li Haifeng must exert all his strength to prove to him that he is loyal to the empire and determined to betray the party. Destroying the secret radio station in Shanghai led to the fall of the Shanghai Military Statistics Station. It was Li Haifeng who offered the best meeting gift to the Japanese army. But what he got in exchange was a reputation of treason carried by him, and a plethora of insults from the Military Statistics Bureau. And even more constrained by the Japanese army, without the freedom to endure difficult days. Through the car window, I watched raindrops falling from the sky onto the gray road, and the chill gradually approached. I finally made a trip, but unfortunately it rained. It's really troublesome. The Japanese bodyguard sitting in the passenger seat turned his head and spoke a less fluent Mandarin, complaining loudly. Seeing no one answering in the car, the Japanese bodyguard suppressed the annoyance on his face and looked up at Li Haifeng through the rearview mirror. "Mr. Li, what are you thinking?" Upon hearing the sound, Li Haifeng was taken aback and lifted his head. Through the rearview mirror, he happened to see a gloomy expression on the face of the Japanese bodyguard. "Oh, I didn't think much, it's just a bit regretful. I haven't seen the sun outside for a long time." Upon hearing these words, the Japanese bodyguard sneered twice, then smacked his lips and replied. "Mr. Li, being able to come out and relax is already a blessing from heaven. Don't expect too much." The car turned and drove onto a more rugged mountain road. The military car driver was completely engrossed, his ears filled with the less obvious mockery of the Japanese bodyguard. Li Haifeng didn't answer, and then he turned his head to look out of the window. He could clearly feel that there were two pairs of eyes in the rearview mirror looking at him from time to time, so that he didn't want to look up. Instead, he just wanted to take this opportunity to smell the air with the smell of wet soil and feel the freedom of this moment. In the past, tears began to dry up, and Lang didn't want to. At a nearby distance, Xu Xiaolian held a telescope in hand. He hummed and stared intently at the military vehicle quietly approaching him. The car was getting closer and closer, and with a thunderous roar, the car suddenly came to a stop. Xu Xiaolian pursed his lips and picked up the pre-prepared gun, aiming at the target. "What's wrong with this car? It was fine just now." The rough and powerful roar of the Japanese bodyguard quickly reached Xu Xiaolian's ears. He didn't move at the sound, his face still maintained a calm expression, even with a hint of a smile. The car suddenly came to a stop, which was what Xu Xiaolian had done. He was naturally not surprised. Li Haifeng's necessary route for travel is not only rugged mountain roads, but also many potholes. For safety reasons, Xu Xiaolian set several traps in a row, fearing that Li Haifeng would avoid this one. But he ultimately underestimated them. The car had just entered the first trap when it was punctured by pre-installed wires and thick needles on the tire. Where did I know? Wait a moment, everyone, I'll get off and take a look. The driver didn't dare to get off. After all, there was a big traitor named Li Haifeng sitting in the car, so many pairs of eyes were staring at him. If there are really ambushes around, it would be too costly to harm oneself. Unable to bear it, a burly man sat next to him and scared the driver in a few strokes, making him sweat profusely. Unable to twist his thighs, the driver was ultimately forced out of the car. The pattering light rain continued to fall from the sky, making the already bumpy dirt road even more swampy. The rain blurred the view. The driver raised his hand and casually wiped his face, squatted next to the tire, and leaned in. Sitting in the car, Li Haifeng didn't feel much better either. He was panting heavily, his chest pressing like 1,000 pounds of boulders, and every breath became very difficult. The car suddenly stopped for no reason. I don't know where the problem is. Mr. Li, Mr. Li. Another dull shout interrupted Li Haifeng's thoughts, and he was immediately stunned and raised his eyes. I saw a Japanese bodyguard sitting in the passenger seat, stretching his neck and staring at him in frustration. Mr. Li, what are you thinking? It's not easy to come out once. You should take some time to relax. Don't keep getting distracted and talk about not being free when you go back. This time it was Shanghai's fall, the reward the empire gave you. If you come out again next time, it's possible that it might be at some point. Watching the Japanese bodyguard cross-legged with a proud and imposing expression, Li Haifeng felt a bit uneasy. He lifted his upper jaw with his tongue and let out a round hum. Immediately after, Li Haifeng turned his head and looked at the tightly closed car window and the sparse rain falling on the ground, then spoke again. Do you want to go down and take a look? I'm afraid there's a problem with the tire. He can't fix it alone for a while. As the bodyguard for this trip, should you take primary responsibility for the safety issues of this trip. 3 things to do when reading. Read, collect, and reward. Chapter 7. He is a traitor to the country, so he deserves to die. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Caught up by Li Haifeng's words, there was nothing to say. The Japanese bodyguard let out a deep snort, opened the car door sideways, and walked down. After all, Li Haifeng was successfully countered by the Japanese army with great effort, and his ability to decipher passwords should not be underestimated. The Japanese bodyguard is very aware of this, so he will not cause unnecessary direct conflicts with Li Haifeng without authorization. Pop. But to express his dissatisfaction, after getting off the car, the Japanese bodyguard still slammed the car door fiercely. Li Haifeng shook his head and was startled by the sound of the door closing. But now, what scares him the most is still the surroundings. This kind of gloomy atmosphere around the Wudong, the rugged mountain road and after the rain. Taking a long breath, Li Haifeng quietly hid in the back seat and the cat got down. He is too clear about what he has done and what he has chosen. He is afraid that something unexpected will happen in the next second, which will put him in an irreversible situation. Xu Xiaolian stood far away and saw this scene from the perspective of the front car window. He put down his telescope, feeling as if he had a fixed number in his heart, and began to pick up the corner of his clothes to wipe off the handgun that had fallen with rainwater. Hey, where exactly is the problem with this car? Although the Japanese bodyguard got off the car, he didn't expect to follow Li Haifeng's orders and personally inspect it. I saw him cross his waist, with sharp eyes, asking the driver who was revealing his lower body under the car. After waiting for a while, I saw the driver standing under the car body, silent. The Japanese bodyguard was a bit impatient and kicked the driver's calf. Hey, what's the matter with you? Can you even fall asleep under the car in such a heavy rain? The driver still didn't respond, and the Japanese bodyguard frowned and began to react. He swung his plump body and took 2 steps forward. Immediately, he struggled to lie on the ground again, and the pattering rain swirled above his bare head. With both hands on the ground and the cat's waist down, the Japanese bodyguard wanted to inquire about the driver's condition under the car. But what he never expected was he lowered his head and saw the most frightening sight of his life. The rain covered the pale face of the driver, and at this moment, his 7 orifices were bleeding, he couldn't close his eyes, staring fixedly at the bottom of the car. In just a few minutes, the driver died silently. No one knows what happened. The Japanese bodyguard panicked and quickly jumped up from the ground. In that moment, he was like an agile and strong man. Due to his fast speed, getting up suddenly made his eyes sparkle with stars, his eyes turned black, and he couldn't help but sweat profusely on his head. However, seeing the scene before us, it is obvious that the Japanese bodyguard cannot manage so much anymore. He knew that it must have been thanks to Li Haifeng's blessings. Someone was ambushing a trap, and someone was going to kill them. Damn it! Biting his lips, the Japanese bodyguard whispered in fluent Japanese. At the moment of crisis, he had intended to escape on his own. Can protect Li Haifeng, after all, the sacred task entrusted to him by the Empire, he knows he must take the other party with him. There wasn't much time left, and the Japanese bodyguard didn't have time to think. He ran quickly to the back seat and suddenly opened the car door. Get off the car quickly, it's dangerous. Before the whole sentence could be finished, the Japanese bodyguard suddenly fell to the ground and spat blood. Struggling a few times, he no longer let out painful and helpless moans. Instead, with stiff eyes open, staring motionless at the sky. On his colorless face, there was a faint gray hue emanating from it. All of that came without any warning. Under the merciless watering of rainwater, the blood flowing on the ground was washed away into a light red color, washed away, and rushed towards the nearby area. Li Haifeng couldn't bear to see these things. He was so scared that his whole body trembled like a thread, his face turned blue, and his bones were all soft. I don't know how long it took to bury my head and hunch over like this. Apart from the still incessant sound of rain, there was no movement beside me. Li Haifeng, full of courage, slowly lifted his head. He didn't want to smell the strong smell of blood on the side anymore, so he waited in agony. 15 minutes, 3/4 of an hour. Li Haifeng flipped through countless mixed thoughts in his mind. Looking at the unclear road outside the car window, he began to have a hint of fantasy. Perhaps, I can still escape from here. Trembling and trembling, Li Haifeng got off the car and took a deep breath of air. He dared not look around, like a frightened bird. Now, Li Haifeng is only tightening his heart and thinking of one thing in his mind, which is to leave here. Where are you going? Before taking a few miles, Li Haifeng heard a deep and piercing male voice behind him. The former was completely unable to move, not because he was startled by the questioning. However, after years of political struggle, Li Haifeng couldn't help but feel it. At this moment, it was a pistol that was pressing against my waist, hard and cold, and making a trigger sound. Recalling the questioning just now, Li Haifeng trembled his voice and forced himself to remain calm in his reply. Your voice is difficult for me to distinguish. If you want to kill me, you can. But do you have the courage to tell me who you are? Xu Xiaolian tilted his neck and showed an impatient expression on his face. He is tired of the complexity and sensitivity of these traitors, knowing that he is on the brink of death and knowing what to do so much. Silence and no response. 3 times and 5 times, Xu Xiaolian shot and killed Li Haifeng. He almost pinned his gun to the latter's waist and fired, the sound of the shot being somewhat drowned out by the sound of rain. Without the knowledge of the gods or ghosts, Xu Xiaolian killed 3 people. In the trap he had set along the way, he had already wiped it with highly toxic potion beforehand. The toxicity of that highly toxic potion is extremely strong, as long as it comes into contact, it will be fatal. With the help of the heavens, the ground contaminated with highly toxic potions quickly evaporated due to falling rain, causing the driver and Japanese bodyguards to bow and touch the ground to die while checking the condition of the car. The rain hit Xu Xiaolian's raincoat hanging from his body, and he stood tall and looked at Li Haifeng with deep eyes. He gave Li Haifeng a ride, in other words, he liberated him, but Xu Xiaolian did not want Li Haifeng to die so easily. Because he is a traitor to the country, he deserves to die, but he shouldn't die so easily. Bang bang bang. Staring at Li Haifeng's head, Xu Xiaolian fired 3 shots in indifference. At this point, the scene's death became unbearable. Rainwater and blood mixed together, and Xu Xiaolian stepped on it, leaving the winding path. The next day, the death of Li Haifeng, a great traitor, was declared in Shanghai. In this way, it can be considered a thorough and painful revenge for the previously destroyed Shanghai radio station. The Japanese army was furious, but Dai Li was overjoyed and longed to reward Xu Xiaolian and Zecheng well. 3 things to do when reading. Read, collect, and reward. Chapter 8. Meeting Zecheng for the first time. You are listening at novelfull.audio. I received a notification to return to Chongqing 3 days later. Taking advantage of the chaos caused by the Wang puppet government, Zecheng managed to escape by chance. The two met at Nanjing railway station. I got on the train, one in front and one behind, and the private rooms reserved by the headquarters were located in the same place. Seeing each other, it goes without saying. Zecheng is consistent with the image in the TV drama. Wearing a Zhongshan suit, holding a briefcase in hand, wearing rectangular framed glasses, and a pair of dark eyes that are deep and bottomless. When Xu Xiaolian looked up at him for the first time, he couldn't help but feel a bit dazed. Because that is the hidden god of the future in the world of TV dramas, Zecheng. He is like the inexperienced military statistics field worker lurking in the world, with a face full of immaturity and inexperience. Sir, isn't there anyone sitting here? Zecheng pretended to stop in front of Xu Xiaolian, asking questions knowingly. In fact, he had been secretly observing the latter for a long time. Xu Xiaolian didn't respond, just covered his face with a newspaper and shook his head indifferently. After Zecheng set aside his briefcase and sat down carefully, Xu Xiaolian put down the newspaper again and said with a straight eye. "You bought your own train ticket, don't you know where your seat is?" Zecheng was momentarily speechless, but soon realized it again. "My seat is in the next carriage, where the lighting is not very good. I happen to see that there is no one here, so I came to ask." Zecheng was so eager to know Xu Xiaolian's true identity that he accidentally made a mistake. Fortunately, he had already been trained by the Wang puppet government and reacted quickly enough to answer fluently in front of Xu Xiaolian. Undoubtedly, he is the hidden god of the future, and upon hearing the answer, a subtle smile appeared on his lips. Then, he picked up the newspaper again and flipped through it. Seeing Xu Xiaolian blocking his face for no reason, Zecheng looked out the window and coughed softly, hoping to alleviate some of her embarrassment. He was sent to Nanjing to carry out a mission shortly after arriving at the Chongqing headquarters. The person in front of him had never seen him before, let alone his identity. However, just because he had just casually teased himself, it seems that he is not a good speaker. In addition, the death of Li Haifeng caused a sensation throughout the Wang puppet government, and Zecheng had also heard of it to some extent. Not only did Li Haifeng's death look bleak and unbearable, with 4 or 5 bullet holes on his face and body. The Japanese bodyguard and driver were bleeding from their 7 orifices and died from poisoning. There are no signs of combat on hand, but a killer can forge 2 different causes of death, seemingly caused by multiple people. From this, it can be seen that the man in front of me is extraordinary. After a moment of silence, the train started and the conductor came over to help close the carriage door. 2 men sat quietly in opposition, with the beautiful spring scenery flashing through the window. Zecheng lowered his voice and looked at Xu Xiaolian, who was motionless, and suddenly opened his mouth. "Hello sir, I am Zecheng, who is working with you on this mission. We exchanged letters." Upon hearing this, Xu Xiaolian, whose expression was blocked, was moved for a moment. He put down the newspaper and looked at Zecheng. This time it was different. Xu Xiaolian had a smile on his face, but not much. "Hello." After a concise greeting, the awkward atmosphere in the air solidified once again. Zecheng's heart was originally filled with many words, but for a moment it was all blocked back by Xu Xiaolian's indifferent attitude. After a while, the train stopped at the platform. Xu Xiaolian couldn't help but doze off. He lifted his head and couldn't help but look at Zecheng. I found the latter staring out of the window in a daze. Xu Xiaolian also took the opportunity to look out the window and saw a couple standing together, their expressions filled with reluctance and concern. Zecheng was obsessed with it, perhaps thinking of his communist girlfriend, Xu Lan. Under sufficient light, Xu Xiaolian's amber pupils became even more profound. He raised his eyebrows and finally took the initiative to speak. "What are you looking at?" A simple question startled Zecheng and he regained his composure. He turned his face and turned towards Xu Xiaolian, his admiration for the couple outside the window swirling rapidly in his eyes. "Oh, I just think the weather is nice today." Zecheng opened his mouth, originally wanting to say something, but he didn't know where to start. Xu Xiaolian saw his hesitation and calmly took over the conversation, returning. "I am the captain of the first team of the action team, named Xu Xiaolian." Upon hearing these words, Zecheng immediately lifted himself and respectfully said to the indifferent face across from him. "So it's Captain Xu, I've heard of you before." Zecheng has indeed heard of Xu Xiaolian's name taboo for a long time, and is one of the few killing gods in the Military Statistics Bureau. Although he is on par with the captain of the second team of the action team, Qi Siyuan, the latter's ability is far less powerful than Xu Xiaolian's. Not only did Dai Li like him, but many high-ranking officials in the Guo army also had a good impression of him. He also has an older brother named Xu Zhongyi. He is the director of the General Affairs Department at the headquarters. Although he is doing well, half of the credit goes to his brother. This is a person with a meticulous expression, extremely rigorous speech, and swift and decisive actions. Zecheng looked at him up and down, and couldn't help but have a plan in mind. Xu Xiaolian should be considered a formidable enemy of the Japanese army and the Communist Party. Seeing Zecheng put on such a respectful appearance, Xu Xiaolian really felt a bit uncomfortable. However, it seems that he is currently in a smaller position than himself. Don't be polite, sit down. Everyone works together for the sake of the party, regardless of class. As the words fell, Xu Xiaolian thought for a moment and spoke again. We have also made great contributions this time. Don't worry, when you go back, Disclose will definitely give you a promotion. Feng Shui takes turns, maybe we'll become equal in the future. Xu Xiaolian's remarks were light-hearted. But it had to remind Zecheng of another person. It was difficult for him not to think. When he came to Nanjing, he accompanied Li Haifeng, but when he returned to Chongqing, Xu Xiaolian was sitting in front of him. Li Haifeng has gone missing. What exactly happened to him? At this moment, is he staying in Nanjing or has he returned to Chongqing? Millions of questions drummed in Zecheng's heart. After thinking for a moment, he still spoke to Xu Xiaolian. Captain Xu, do you know? Chief Li Haifeng. I know. Xu Xiaolian pretended to be absent-minded, twisted his wrist, and spoke back. He hardly hesitated and blurted it out. Zecheng was stunned, raised his hand to support his glasses, and said again. This time, he was working with us on the task. Xu Xiaolian knew what Zecheng wanted to ask, so he cleared his throat and slowly answered. Li Haifeng is with us, and I knew about this from the beginning. He is now missing, and I am also aware of it. The task has been completed, and the damn person has also died. As long as we go back and hand in the task, that's it. As for the rest, it doesn't matter. Li Haifeng is not the bureau seat or chairman. Why are you so worried about him? 3 things to do when reading. Read, collect, and reward. Chapter 9. Confidential tasks do not easily disclose. You are listening at novelfull.audio. There were roars outside the carriage, and the train started again. Zecheng looked fixedly at Xu Xiaolian in front of him, some lost in thought and some expected. He couldn't help but think to himself that the person in front of him was truly the god of the unification of the army, and even his words were completely indifferent. In addition, the faint and sharp light emanating from his light brown pupils made people shudder even more. So, after all, Li Haifeng was a member of the Military Statistics Bureau and disappeared without any reason. Surprisingly, no one cared about him or her. Xu Xiaolian's words, Zecheng did not continue. He looked out of the window, his throat wriggling slightly. This scene was perfectly captured by Xu Xiaolian. He crossed his legs and leaned leisurely against the wall, with a subtle curve rising again at the corner of his mouth. I got off the train and arrived in Chongqing. Xu Xiaolian originally wanted to take a yellow charter bus back to the headquarters, but he never expected to see his brother Xu Zhongyi as soon as he left the station. Xiaolian, I'm here. At this time, Xu Zhongyi had not joined the Communist Party yet, and he was still the shop assistant who was a loafer and didn't want to make progress. Come on, come on. Xu Zhongyi leaned against a military vehicle, anxiously waving at Xu Xiaolian. His flamboyant appearance makes it difficult not to make passers-by take a second glance. Xu Xiaolian walked forward and handed the luggage in his hand to the driver beside him. He was about to say something, but was interrupted by Xu Zhongyi, who was looking behind him with a tilted head. Who is this? Xu Xiaolian turned his head to find that Zecheng had been following him silently. Hello, Chief Xu. I am Zecheng, the field worker who was working with Captain Xu on this mission. Xu Zhongyi spends his whole day in the headquarters buzzing around, and almost no one knows who he is. Zecheng once went to the General Affairs Office to collect things and met Xu Zhongyi from afar. He was wearing an open-collar military uniform, with messy hair, humming a tune, munching on melon seeds, and his feet resting on his desk, not to mention how leisurely he was. In short, Xu Zhongyi, who looks like such a person, doesn't seem like a department head at all, but rather a small servant who spends his days idle. Zecheng's conjecture is correct, and Xu Zhongyi is indeed so. After graduating from university, due to livelihood issues, he joined the Military Intelligence Bureau with his younger brother Xu Xiaolian, but he was at odds with the darkness and coldness of the bureau and became an alternative military intelligence agent. Originally at the military academy, Xu Zhongyi's academic performance was not good, and he repeatedly failed grades. Later on, he also became a good person and took advantage of his luck to enter the military statistics headquarters, becoming the head of the General Affairs Department of the Logistics Department. Oh, Zecheng. Xu Zhongyi rolled his eyes and looked back and forth at Zecheng. Soon, he spoke up. You and my brother have made great contributions this time. Let's wait and wear our seats back to give you a good reward, ahaha. Upon hearing this, Xu Xiaolian tilted his mouth. He was too lazy to listen to Xu Zhongyi's flattery and took the lead in getting into the car. Hey! Xu Zhongyi didn't have time to stop Xu Xiaolian. He turned to look at Zecheng, who was standing still, and raised his hand to pat his shoulder. It's okay, my brother is like that. Let's go, get in the car first. The car started, and Xu Xiaolian and Zecheng sat in the back row together. The former was not ready to speak and casually leaned back in the chair, pretending to sleep. Xu Zhongyi couldn't help but smack his lips when he saw this scene through the rearview mirror. He couldn't help but turn his head and said to the bewildered Zecheng, "It's been hard all the way, why don't you also sleep for a while?" Zecheng was obviously a bit shy. He used his spare light to sweep Xu Xiaolian, who was silent, and smiled inexplicably. Sitting next to him was a fierce and rebellious military statistics expert, and in front of him sat a social expert from the military statistics circle. As a small servant, how dare he sleep in this car? Thank you very much for Director Xu's concern. I'm not tired. Xu Zhongyi also understood propriety, and he chuckled twice before speaking up to advise. The car turned onto Xinhua Road and then drove onto Zhongshan Second Road. Here we go, get ready to get off. At the entrance of the headquarters, Xu Zhongyi turned around and looked at the two people behind the seats, indicating something. Oh my, I finally got interested in picking someone up at the train station, but I didn't want to get on the train and fall asleep without saying a word to my dear brother. Upon hearing this, Xu Xiaolian first leaned back in the back seat and pretended to be tired, opening his mouth and yawning. Then, he slowly spoke up and answered to Xu Zhongyi. Brother, I've been tired enough along the way. I'll go see the bureau seat first. If there's anything I need to do, I'll talk to you when I get home. After speaking, Xu Xiaolian was ready to get off the car. Before he could push open the car door, he heard a faint voice coming from in front of him. Going home. I'm about to leave soon, how can I have time to go home? Xu Xiaolian's left hand rested on the handlebar, and he was stunned before turning his head to look at Xu Zhongyi. Setting off, where are you going? As soon as the words fell, Xu Xiaolian's thoughts also began to revolve. He quickly realized that it was now the eve of the victory of the War of Resistance against Japan. Based on time and infiltration of the original plot, Xu Zhongyi was indeed ordered to dress up as a prisoner of the Achievement Army and infiltrate the Communist Party team that was about to depart for northeast China. What he said about leaving is probably because of this matter. The co-pilot, Xu Zhongyi, did not directly answer. He first let out a low snort, then pursed his lips. After all, there were outsiders in the car, and he was too embarrassed to directly explain that it was his mentor, Li Weigong, who saw him slacking off in Chongqing and wanted to arrange an undercover mission to make himself stand out. Fortunately, Zecheng was a discerning person. He buried his head and coughed twice, then said tightly to the two brothers of the Su family. So what? Captain Su, since I've already returned, I'll get off first. Chief Su, thank you very much for your car. Xu Zhongyi quickly turned his head and smiled at Zecheng. Oh my, we're all part of the same family. Say, thank you or not. Zecheng smiled and nodded, then turned his head to look at Xu Xiaolian, who was also staring at him. See you later. After a while, Xu Xiaolian casually said to Zecheng. Okay, Captain Su, I'll see you later. Zecheng got off the car, and Xu Xiaolian didn't delay for a moment. He turned his head again and said to Xu Zhongyi. Brother, where are you going? Oh my, go on a mission out of town. Xu Zhongyi suddenly recalled Li Weigong's words that the tasks lurking in the Communist Party team must not be revealed. At present, seeing that Xu Xiaolian couldn't stop questioning, he quickly furrowed his brows and replied hastily. Xu Xiaolian saw the situation and continued to pretend to ask. You are in the General Affairs Department, and you only need to calculate the accounts and pick up the goods. Where else do you need to go to other places to perform any tasks? Hey, you kid, who do you look down on? Why can't the General Affairs Department go out of town? I just told you, your brother, I'm on a confidential mission and I can't easily reveal it. Xu Zhongyi couldn't resist being provoked, so he turned his head tightly and whispered to Xu Xiaolian in a deep voice. Feilu's novel, Fei wants you to look good.